My homophobic sister claimed that my marriage is less valuable because I'm a lesbian, and then tried to steal my wedding venue. My parents sided with her, so I decided to uninvite all of them from my wedding, which caused them to lose their minds. My sister showed up at my door without warning, demanding that I give her my wedding venue. Before I could even ask what was going on, she started ranting about how my wedding, being with another woman, was somehow less valuable and would bring disgrace to the family. She then began attacking my fiancé's race, saying that her kind are known to cheat, and suggested that if she wasn't cheating now, she would be later. She said, "You know what they're like word for word." I have no idea how she thought this was the way to convince me to hand over my venue, but I obviously told her no. When I did, she completely lost it, trying to force her way into my house. After I managed to shut the door and lock it, she stood outside screaming homophobic slurs at me before storming off. As she left, she warned me that the venue would be hers, and I knew this wasn't over. Rachel has always played the baby of the family card to get her way. A few years ago, after months of saving, I finally bought my first car, a reliable used Honda Civic that I was really excited about. I had been working part-time jobs while attending college to afford it. The day I brought the car home, Rachel, who had just turned 18, immediately claimed it as hers. She didn't ask if she could sit in it or drive it, she just assumed we would share it. She said it was too cute and asked if she could take it to the mall that night. I laughed, thinking she was joking, but she wasn't. She pouted like a child and complained that it wasn't fair that I was the only one who got to drive it, especially since she didn't have her own car yet. I explained that I had worked hard to save up for it and needed it for work and school, but she wasn't having any of it. She stormed off to our parents, and later that night, they sat me down to talk. My mum acknowledged that the car was mine but said it would help them if I shared it with Rachel until she had her own. When I refused, they offered to pay the insurance if I let her drive it, but I still didn't want to agree. Eventually, my dad insisted that I'd have more chances to save up while Rachel was just getting started. In the end, I had no choice but to let Rachel use the car whenever she wanted. She treated it like her own and barely said thank you, and my parents painted me as the selfish one for not wanting to share with my younger sister. A few days after Rachel showed up at my house demanding my wedding venue, my mum called, asking me to come over for dinner. She didn't say much, but I could tell from her voice that it was going to be one of those talks again. I went over that night, and after an awkward dinner, my mum finally spoke up. She told me Rachel had mentioned the venue situation. I asked what exactly she had said, and my parents explained that Rachel and Matt were having trouble finding a venue, and it meant a lot to them because it was such a big step in their relationship. I nodded, trying to stay calm. Then my mum added that our vineyard would be the perfect spot, especially since it was their first wedding and, most importantly, a traditional one. That statement hit me hard. It was clear that my wedding didn't matter to them as much because it wasn't between a man and a woman. I was stunned, but not surprised. My parents had always quietly disapproved of my relationship with Lisa. They never outright said it, but their passive-aggressive comments and subtle digs about my lifestyle always gave them away. And now, here they were, making it clear that Rachel's wedding was more important simply because it was traditional. I calmly explained that I had booked the vineyard a year ago, and Lisa and I had been planning our wedding around it. We weren't giving it up. My mum sighed, and my dad shook his head. My mum had the nerve to say that I should let Rachel have her moment. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I placed my silverware on the table, told them that Rachel could find another vineyard, and walked out. I knew then that they would never see my wedding as important, but I wasn't going to let them ruin it for me. A few days later, Lisa and I received a call from our wedding planner. She sounded confused and frantic, asking if we had cancelled the venue. My heart dropped. I told her we hadn't, and she informed me that someone had called pretending to be me and cancelled our booking. I was furious. I knew exactly who it was, Rachel. She was the only person petty enough to pull something like this. I immediately called her. She answered sweetly, but when I asked if she had cancelled our venue, she didn't even try to deny it. She laughed and said it was just a harmless prank, claiming that since I forced her to find another venue, we should be able to do the same. I was so angry I couldn't even speak. I hung up and called the venue, thankfully managing to get the booking reinstated. The people at the vineyard were understanding, but the damage was already done. I called Rachel back and told her I'd had enough. I uninvited her from the wedding. She was upset, insisting it was just a joke, but I told her I didn't care and that she'd better not pull anything else. But just when I thought things couldn't get worse, my parents started calling. They left voicemail after voicemail, saying I was overreacting, that it was just a joke, and that I needed to apologize to Rachel for blowing it out of proportion. My mom even texted me, saying I was making the family look bad by creating a scene. Throughout all of this, Lisa was my rock. She kept reminding me that this was our day and that we wouldn't let Rachel or anyone else ruin it. But I was so furious that it became hard to focus on the wedding plans at all. A few days after the whole venue fiasco, I thought things had finally calmed down after uninviting Rachel, and aside from the calls from my parents, it was quiet for a bit. One evening, my cousin Leah called. We weren't particularly close, but I liked her, so I picked up. After a pause, she told me she didn't want to get involved in family drama, but I needed to know what Rachel had been saying. Apparently, Rachel was telling everyone that I uninvited her, because I was jealous that her wedding was more important, as it was traditional unlike mine. She claimed I was being selfish and dramatic, and that the family only cared about her marriage because it followed their norms. Rachel didn't mention trying to sabotage my venue or how she had attempted to take it. Leah said she believed me, but she knew how our family was since Rachel was the youngest. They were siding with her. Leah even heard some family members saying they weren't sure if they should attend my wedding anymore because they didn't want to take sides. I thanked her for letting me know, and as soon as I hung up, Lisa started getting threatening texts from an unknown number. The messages warned that if we didn't cancel the wedding, there would be consequences. As I was going over the seating arrangements, Lisa called me, clearly upset. She had been getting strange calls at work, all saying the same thing: we should cancel the wedding or face something terrible happening. She'd reported it to her manager and flagged the numbers, but the calls kept coming. We figured they were burner phones, but she wrote down the numbers anyway. I reassured her that we wouldn't let these threats scare us, but I was terrified too. We reported the messages to the police and hired extra security for the wedding. A week before the wedding, Rachel and my mum showed up at my house, banging on the door. Against my better judgment, I let them in, not wanting to cause a scene outside. Immediately, my mum demanded that I cancel the wedding, saying it was embarrassing for the family. She asked if I really wanted people to know I was having a lesbian wedding and what that would do to their reputation. I told her I wasn't cancelling anything, and if she was ashamed of me, she didn't have to come to the wedding. That's when she exploded, accusing me of ruining Rachel's life and making the family look bad. Rachel just stood there, enjoying the drama. I kicked them both out, telling them they were no longer welcome at the wedding. The day of the wedding finally arrived. Lisa and I were both nervous but excited. With security in place, everything went smoothly. Our close friends, supportive family members and chosen family were there to celebrate. It was beautiful, and for a moment, all the drama disappeared. However, during the reception, one of my cousins pulled me aside and showed me a live video Rachel had posted. She wasn't at the vineyard. She had eloped that morning at the courthouse. I realized she never wanted the vineyard, she just wanted to ruin my wedding. After her courthouse wedding, she tried to throw a last-minute reception at my parents' house, but hardly anyone showed up, not even the extended family. In the end, Lisa and I had the wedding of our dreams. A few months later, I cut off contact with Rachel and my parents. They still try to reach out, acting like I overreacted, but I'm done with their toxic behavior. Lisa and I are happier than ever, building our life together with people who truly love and support us.